All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Lane 9, our third episode of this interview series. My name is Garrett Zatlin. I'm conducting today's interview. Brett very selfishly decided to get sick, so he's not doing it. I'm here. Brett, what are you doing, man? Anyways, we are here with Isaac Basten, our first D1 interview of this series. Multi-time All-American, 336 for 1,500 meters, 148 for 800 meters, and 354 in the mile. Isaac, dude, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not doing a whole lot. So as soon as I got the text, I was like, yeah, man, let's do it.
Love it. Love it, man. Well, hey, what we'll do today is we'll just kind of start directly from the start. We'll talk a little bit about, your introduction to Drake, walk through your career, ask a little, intermittent questions about that, and we'll just kind of go from there. So with that, Drake, right? You were, I believe, a 415, 1600 guy. I want to say 909, 3200 guy in high school. What initially attracted you to Drake? Where else were you kind of looking? What were your options when you're a senior and you're kind of looking at the next collegiate level?
All right. So interesting fact, I was terrified of planes. So I wanted to be somewhere in driving distance. I don't know why I was terrified of planes. I feel like that's a really irrational fear, but yes. So I knew it was something in like anything that was less than a 6-hour drive so that I could be driving back and forth. And of course, somewhere that would give me at least a little bit of scholarship money. I feel like that's always on athletes' minds because I didn't want a ton of student debt after college. So it ended up being between Minnesota, Purdue, Iowa State, and Drake. And Drake just offered me the most money, to be candid. And so I said yes, and I'm pretty glad I did.
Well, clearly it's worked out. It's obviously gone incredibly well. You kind of look back at Drake's history, though, at least recently. You kind of look at some of the dudes that you've been able to produce through this program, whether it's Fisher, whether it's recent teammate of yours, Adam Fogg, now yourself. What is it about Drake? I mean, like it really, like, what is it about this school in particular then compared to a handful of mid-majors in the Midwest, right? What is it about this school that is allowing you guys to, attract and then produce top level guys?
Well, I think we're one of the best coach programs in the country with Jay Colacius. Man, he just knows what he's doing. He's the first coach I've ever had that really listens to my input, and I feel like that's huge because obviously I know how my legs are feeling, and when I can be honest with him, I can go up to his office and say, hey, this is what's going on, and we can adjust things on the fly 24/7. That always helps a ton. And then it really just is a winning culture, right? Like obviously huge schools like Washington and Wisconsin, NAU, they all have those things going on. But as soon as you get one or two big time All-Americans that come here, it's just like, oh, this is the expectation now. Now we're getting higher end recruits. People are training with me and Fogg now, and so they're trying to catch up to us. And I feel like over the course of time, it just gradually gets better and better and better.
Love it. I like this. So I'm a big NBA guy, right? And one of the popular, podcasts out there is that they always ask their interviewees, what was your welcome to the NBA moment? And I want to know for you, what was your welcome to the NCAA moment? That kind of oh shit moment of this is another level. Do you have that moment? Do you know what that is?
Oh yeah, yep, for sure. So I've never really been much of a cross country guy. So during cross country, I kind of always just get through the season and do my best. But I knew as soon as track rolled around my freshman year, I was like, oh, I'm going to dominate. Here we go. And my first meet was just a small indoor meet in Nebraska. And my coach and I going into it, we were like, yeah, you're the favorite. It's a big deal that you're here. We're going to destroy these guys. And then I ended up getting lapped. And I didn't know who the guy was at the time. It was Wesley Kiptoo. And so obviously he's a very, very high-end athlete, but I didn't know who he was at the time. He was just like a JUCO national champion, but I didn't really follow that kind of thing. And so I thought going into it, I was going to wipe the floor with them. And then we got one lap into the race and I was like, all right, we're out a little bit hot. And I don't think I can hold this for a 3K. So I slowed down and he never did. I thought I would catch up to him, but yeah, that never happened. So that was definitely my welcome moment for sure.
Yeah, Wesley was, I think, just brand new to the NCAA, like around that point. So for anyone who wasn't familiar, and you're thinking, "Oh, okay, I got this guy," very few people had him that year. I'll just say that. So not entirely your fault there. Um, but let's talk about what I think. So that was 2020. Is that correct?
Yeah, end of 2019 or 2020. I'm not sure when that indoor season
Okay.
was. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So that was 2020. You go through 2020. You win the Missouri Valley title actually that year, I believe, as a freshman, right in the 3K. Is that correct?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. And then we kind of go through, continue to evolve, and then we fast forward to all the way to the spring of 2021, where I'm looking at here. And this is where you begin to get a little bit of momentum. You run 347, 348, and then at Drake Relays on your home track, you run 343. You go down and you run 340 at West Regionals. Then you run 339 at the prelims in the NCAAs. When you're going to the final round of the 2021 Outdoor National Meet, what are your thoughts? Like, what are you like? I'm the best guy in this field. Like, what are your thoughts?
So throughout the rounds, every single round, I was just like, "This is absolutely ridiculous. I don't belong here." Like I'm always a data guy, and so I'm always looking at all this stuff, and like I'm filling out projections on my own, and I'm looking at this, and I just going into that regional final, I thought that I could get out of the first round of regionals. I thought I could make the regional final. But going into the regional final, I was already like, I just don't see a scenario here. I'm checking names. I don't see a scenario here where I can possibly get out of this. And then I got out of that. And then going into the national prelim, I remember it was the first time I'd ever done this, but I just put a question mark by my own name. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I could see myself winning this seat. I could see myself scraping through. I could see myself totally blowing up and getting dead last. And then finally making that final. Making that final was probably the first time that I was like, okay, I'm going to win this thing. That was the first time that I actually like really believed in myself and had the confidence. And then of course that's the time that I blow up and get dead last. But but it was a crazy run. I was grateful to be part of every round that I was in, and yeah, it was crazy.
For those listening at home, the final that he's talking about featured Cole Hawker in 335, Nagoose 335, Suleiman 337, Kipsang 338, Mario Garcia Romo 338. You picked one of the fastest years to ever participate in a 1500 meter final. No one's going to blame you all for that one at all. Um, so we'll fast forward through the cross country season, and then it's the winter of 2022, and this is where I think if things get really interesting, get a lot of fun, in my opinion. You go 358 in the mile. We may have accidentally lifted you out of a recap article. That was my fault. I apologize, but we made up for it in a later discussion article. You run 359. You eventually run 356 at the Arkansas Qualifier. This feels like it was like a big marquee race for you. You take down a really solid field. You get the overall win. And you probably position yourself for nationals to qualify, and you did. What was there like? Was that the moment? Was that the race where you go like, "Oh, I am truly one of the top guys, and I'm not just lucky to get through the rounds"? Is that kind of what that race was?
Um, God, it's tough to describe the feeling of that race because I always saw myself as that guy after the run I made during outdoor. I and so the whole indoor season was such a disappointment. Like that 358 mile was a good monkey off the back, but then I got COVID right after that, so my training was just absolutely terrible. And then that first Iowa State meet back, I ran 359, and I was just coming off of COVID then, so I was like, oh, I'm just getting unlucky, and then I gave it one shot at Arkansas. I ran 408, and I was like, all right, well, maybe it's just not in it for me this season. And my coach was like to me, are we even going to go to this Nebraska meet? Do you want to go? I'm going to bring Fogg to get a last chance qualifier because he was getting passed up in the rankings. And I was like, sure, I'll go. And he's like, and my mindset was just, all right, let's have a positive day. Let's get back under 4 and build some momentum going into outdoor. And so I just got in the back early, put zero pressure on myself, and I had a lot late. And that was the first race back that I was like, all right, I feel like myself again. This is the first race where I feel like the outdoor Isaac Basten from the last year. And I was like, just, yeah. So I was pretty surprised, but not surprised at the same time. It's kind of hard to describe how I was feeling then, but yeah.
Fair enough. That was again what I feel like, at least from an outsider's perspective, felt like a big marquee race for yourself. I was watching back actually one of your podcast episodes with Adam Fogg, and in there you talk about this race, and you talk a little bit about some of the reaction actually that you got in your DMs. Can you kind of walk us through that and talk about like what were people chirping at you for?
Um, Yeah, it was a lot of bot accounts. I think people were scared to come at me with their actual Instagram account, but it was just people saying like, "Hey, you'd never get to this level where you're at without the help that Fogg's given you, and you'd be nothing without him." And like all the overrated stuff, like I mean, don't deserve to be at indoor nationals. All those things coming at me. But I think I really think it was people just disappointed that maybe a bigger name like Fogg or a bigger name that's down below in those rankings wouldn't make indoor nationals because I took the spot. And I I also grittied after I won that race. I don't know if you saw that. It was pretty stupid, but I grittied at the line. But the only reason I did that was because Fogg and I, as a joke, the jog the day before, we were like, if either one of us wins this, we have to gritty. And so
Right,
and so I can't just not do it. So that was
right.
that was the logic there. It wasn't like an FU to the field. It wasn't supposed to be thought of as that, but I think some people took it the wrong way.
I think that's hilarious. I think that's great. Um, that's so, but really, it's that race that then you go into the indoor national meet and you get out of the rounds, you get out of the prelims, and then you get fifth overall. But that finish at the end is so congested, and all of a sudden, I just see you come in on that inside rail, and all of a sudden, it's boom, you're fifth place. I mean, when you look back at that race, are we happy? Are we thinking like, could I have made my move earlier? Like, what is the reaction? Like, how do you feel after walking away from that?
Well, I think this was my second final. The outdoor final that I ran in was an absolute blow up fest, but it was pretty quick from the gun, or at least one lap into it started picking up. That was the first national final that I've been in where it's really just been an absolute jog fest. The pace was super pedestrian, and I had no idea what to do with that because I had always just gotten out in the back and wait till people drop off, slowly pass people, and then make a move with one lap to go. And obviously, you can't do that when it's so tactical. When there's four guys wide with a lap to go, especially on a 200 indoor track. And so I didn't know what to do. I was kind of just in a panic state the whole time. And with one lap to go, I was like, I have way too much energy left. So I just started sprinting, and I probably ended up running 240 meters in that last lap because I was in like lane four the entire way, just trying to move around people. But afterwards, it was just kind of looking at my coach, and I was like, what was that? Like, this was ridiculous. I mean, I was telling him afterwards, I was like, I could have won that race if I would have done it correctly. And he's like, yeah, it's easy to say that, but it's hard. It's harder when you're up there trying to kick from that lead when you're leading. And I didn't believe him, but I don't know. It was a good moment and a bad moment because I was happy that I finally got a podium finish in the top eight. But at the same time, I was looking back and I was like, man, if I was in a better position, like if I was where Romo was, I might have been able to get him. So mixed emotions for sure.
Yeah, for those who are wondering in terms of what that race was, that was Mario Garcia Romo and Morgan Beatlescombe going to the line. Garcia Romo got that title that year. Um, the following spring is interesting. You run 339 three times prior to the outdoor national meet. Um, the consistency you have to be thrilled about, but are you also like I know I'm in 338 337 shape, or are you just kind of like, oh no, this is great, I'm running 339 three times?
So the story of the 339s is interesting because the Brian Clay 339 was terrible. I raced that brutally. Actually, our I didn't know the time was changed, so the meet was an hour and 40 minutes behind schedule, and but they sent our coaches an email saying that the 1500s were going to start at their scheduled time. I didn't know that email was sent. Our coach didn't communicate that with us. So I ate a dinner about 30 minutes before my race. Not a good idea. I felt terrible. I ran terrible. So honestly, I was like whatever about that 3:39. I was like, at least I got something that's in. And then the Drake Relays 3:39 was like 15-mile-an-hour winds, a cold day. The pacer was slow, and I outkicked Moed Zahifi at the line. And so when I finished that race, I was like, man, that was a 3:39, but like that was the equivalent of like a 3:35 effort. Like I killed this race. Like I was super pleased about that. Probably my best race of the year. But so yeah, even though I ran 3:39 a few different times, it's they were all different 3:39s. Like even though it was the same time, one of them I was really pleased about, and one of them I was like, this is just terrible. But yeah.
Okay. Um, One of those 3:39s. Excuse me, I said you ran 3:39, 3:39s prior to the national meet. I believe you ran that third one in the prelims at the Outdoor National Championships, eventually qualifying for the finals. The finals, this was interesting. You decide to take it with 400 meters to go. Personally, as someone who has watched you race a handful of times, I was surprised. I thought you were going to make your move around 150, 200, but you decided to go at 400. Can you walk us through kind of like what that thought process was as you're kind of making that move and you decide, like, screw it, let's go?
So that was premeditated. My coach and I beforehand had decided at 400 I was going to take it. And looking back on it, I obviously don't think it was a good decision. Especially there was 10-mile-an-hour winds that day, and we were against the wind on that backstretch. So with 300 meters to go, we were against the wind, and I led that backstretch into the wind when we were kicking, which is, I mean, that just burned me out. I was with 150 to go, I had nothing left in me. And looking back on it, I do think it was 100 to 200 meters too early. But again, I was so scarred and in my head from that indoor final because I'd never experienced that before that I was like, oh, I can't be in a bad position. I can't be in a bad position. And so I overcompensated for that and it didn't go well.
Again, another race that was very tactical. A lot of guys all in that tight pack. Really could have gone to anyone. That was Joe Wascom coming home for that win over Mario Garcia Romo. Um, Cross country, you have a great season. What the cross country stuff actually, because you've always quietly been really solid. Like I think ever since your sophomore year, actually, 2022 cross country season, you win the MVC title individually. Although I think you had maybe won prior to that as well. Am I correct in saying that?
I'm a two-time NBC cross champion.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You go to Midwest, you get ninth in the Midwest region, and then you qualify for the Nationals. Maybe not the day you were looking for, but overall, like, are you almost like surprised about like your cross country fitness? Like, you even saying like when you first got to Drake, like, hey, I'm not really a cross country guy, but you're winning MVC titles, you're top 10 in your region. Like, this is some like no joke stuff.
Yeah, I think I really just don't have the mental capacity for cross country, and I always give it everything I have for my teammates and for my coaches twice a year, and that's at conference and that's at regionals. And the other races I do, I kind of just tempo and kind of just see them as more of workouts. But I just yeah, that pain of the 8K and the 10K. I don't know how these guys handle it. God, I just 30 minutes in your thoughts is just not a pleasant experience for me. I don't know. I don't know what it is about cross country, but I really don't enjoy it. I just do it because I think it really benefits you training wise. And once I get to the national meet every year in cross country, I'm kind of just satisfied that, oh, I've accomplished my goals. Let's go have a fun trip and just jog a 10K and have some fun.
Cool. Cool. I love that. As someone, so my family, my brother was like a very competitive, national qualifier in high school, over 800 meters. I was more of a cross country guy. And we had the same conversations. Like, I don't understand what goes through your head when you're racing your event. I'm racing my event. So I can at least, relate to those conversations that I'm sure you're having in your own head. This past winter though, I mean, you were on fire. I mean, you were just insane. I mean, it was insane. You were on 148 for 800 meters. a pretty significant PR and against a really good field, by the way, at Iowa State. You run 357 again at Iowa State, then you go run 354. Are you looking at yourself being like, I'm going to win the national title?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. That was the goal, and that was the conversations that my coach and I were having throughout the entire year. And Boston was a 354 effort, but I was very sick. I had the flu that day. I think I could have ran 2 or 3 seconds quicker. I was just feeling really good legs wise going into that race. I was super sick. I felt like I couldn't breathe, but the mindset definitely changed going to that Boston meet. It was like, hey, let's just get a national qualifier out of the way, and then we'll worry about it then. But going into the national field, I knew I was ranked like seventh ish, but I was like, the rankings mean nothing. I'm the best runner in this field. I'm going to take care of business. That was the most confident I've ever been in a championship going into my life, and I think looking back on it, it was rightfully so. I think legs wise, I felt just as good as anyone in the field. It just didn't go my way, and that's kind of the way indoor races go sometimes.
Well, speaking of that, NCAA's, that mile, I mean, you want to talk about a thrilling finish. The mile, it's, I mean, again, like we're talking about, I think there was favorites that, we at TSR kind of, proclaimed that it was like Wascom, SAE, and then I think we were like, but if this race is tactical enough, there are guys who could come out. I think you were picked by a couple outlets as like the champion, to be one to win this race. When you're seeing this race unfold, and then you see the opening on the inside rail, you charge down the inside rail, you lean the line with Luke Hauser. Did you think you had it?
I did. Yep. I thought I won. I thought it was enough. And I just remember the feeling I looked up at the board and I was like, please, please. Because, there's that like 2 or 3 second delay.
Yep.
So Hauser and I are both looking at the board. And I think Hauser was 99% sure he had it won. He actually like did this as he crossed the line because he thought he had it won pretty easily. And then I think after he crossed, he's probably like, oh shit, I didn't see Basten on the inside. And so we were both like anxiously looking up at the board. And oh man, I just remember dropping to my knees like, you've got to be kidding me. Yeah, I feel like I was so unlucky in that race. And it's easy to say you're unlucky. It's easy for anyone to say they lost because they were unlucky, but things just never opened up even a little bit for me that day. And finally, when they did with like not even like 50 meters to go, I still almost had enough to come back and win. And looking back, I was like, you've got to be kidding me, man. If something opened up even 100 meters beforehand, I would have, it's just, yeah, crazy looking back at it. But it was really good. It was a really good tactical race, and the Washington coach and the Washington athletes did a really good job of planning that out. The Washington coach came up to me afterwards and told me that it was all planned out for them to box me in with a lap to go. And they did a really good job of it, honestly. Wascom boxed me in, and then they got unintentional help with Anas Asai boxing me in with 100 meters to go. That's why I couldn't move wide. And then so I had to stick on the inside for one more curve. Because I think if Asai's not there, I think I get to the outside and I think I still win. But yeah, things just didn't go my way, and really smart racing for them, and Hauser deserved it.
It's so funny to hear you say this because I'm watching the race and I'm like, he's still boxed in, and it looks like it's intentional. It almost looks like Washington is exactly trying to do what you just said. And to their credit, it looks like they pulled it off fairly well. From a premeditated standpoint, what was your planned approach going into the national meet? Like, was there like a certain, like, just wait for the opening? Was it make a kick at this move? Like, what was it? What was the plan?
I wanted to do what Mario did the year that I lost, because I knew it would be reasonably tactical. The only way I thought it wouldn't be is if Asai took it about 400 to 800 in. Because I knew Asai couldn't lead it from bell to bell. I knew nobody was good enough to do that. Nobody's good enough to take it from bell to bell and win it over all of us because we're all so good. But I thought that maybe Asai would go 400 to 600 in to just try to really stretch it out and then drop the field. I thought that was a possibility, but I knew for sure for those first 400 meters it wouldn't be quick. And so I thought, hey, I'm going to use a little bit of extra energy this time to put myself into third or fourth early to be in a good spot so that when that move comes, I'm ready for it. And I did a really good job of that. The only problem was I think I took a little bit too long to respond once the Washington boys all moved up, because I almost kind of let them all get into position and let them all execute that plan that their coach gave them going into it.
Do you think you're the best tactical runner in the NCAA?
Um, it's a loaded question. I think I make a lot of mistakes. I do. I think I made. I don't know if you watched the conference final that I just won, but
I
I
did.
I was an idiot tactically that day, and I shouldn't say I was an idiot. I should say I was overconfident. Um, but I think I think I have a high IQ, and I think I'm pretty smart, and I'm pretty data driven, like I said, and I learn from all my mistakes. I don't know if that makes me the best tactical runner in the NCAA, but I think with my experience and with how much I am in my head, I think that's definitely a good thing. And I think I'm one of the best tactical runners in the NCAA. But I think there are other ones as well. Like I think Wascom's brilliant tactically. Um, just out of the guys I've raced, I mean, Dylan Jacobs is great tactically. I think there are a lot of high end guys though that are pretty terrible tactically too. So it goes back and forth, but I do think I'm one of the best.
Is there anyone in particular who you think is the best, or would you say that's just too nuanced to kind of specify that?
Yeah, I would say it's too nuanced to specify that. I think when Mario was here, I think Mario was maybe one of the best tactical runners in the world. Um, and that's what led to him getting fourth in the World Championships. I tried to learn a lot from Mario, just like watching him run, watching the way he executes his plans. But now that I'm one of the older guys in here, maybe I am the best tactically. I'm not sure, but I think I'm definitely up there.
So you kind of took away one of my next questions, which was that NBC final was a little shaky. I'm on the edge of my seat. Like, what are you doing? Like, and like you said, is that just overconfidence? Was that just like, oh, I think I have it, and then you just waited too long? Like, is that just a fair assessment?
Yeah. It was complete overconfidence. I thought it was going to be easy going into the day. And those Bradley guys, Dietrich boxed me in a little bit late, so I couldn't move. So I had to move on that curve, and I didn't want to do that. And then Krull almost held me off. So it was great tactical racing by both of them. Terrible tactical racing by me. Just yeah, an example of overconfidence for sure. But
Okay.
there have been there have been two pillars I think that have made me successful, and one of them is my mind, and the other one is my kick. And sometimes one of them isn't there on any given day, and I have to rely on the other one. And thank God I have my kick, because sometimes I really need it.
Um, well, I mean, you do have a great kick. You have maybe one of the best kicks among all mile slash 1500 meter runners. You did run 3:36.99 though, like at Brian Clay. I mean, we have to be happy with that result, right?
Yeah, I was. I had been struggling with training since that indoor final. Just kind of like kicking the rust off again after a few weeks off. I mean, Hauser, I was kind of in the same boat. He had struggled a little bit that day, and yeah, I think it's just tough for us indoor guys to bounce back that quick. The guys that were at indoor nationals that quick. So I was really happy with that result. Yep.
You now have the national championships coming up, regional championships first, national championships. What is the mindset right now? What is the approach? We're you still have to believe that you're one of the national title favorites yet again, right?
Yep. Yeah, of course. There are names that I've circled that I think are for sure concerns. But I think that if I outsmart the field, and if I'm there with 200 to go, I'm going to be a very hard runner to stop. So I always believe in myself. Of course, I mean, every guy at the top does, but yeah, there are a few guys that have a chance, and I definitely think I'm one of the big names. But going into every round, I think I really just have to calm myself down and remember, hey, it's just one round at a time. I just have to relax and get myself in the top five, get myself through, and worry about the rounds first, because you got to make the final to be worried about the final. So all this crap that I'm doing means nothing if I can't get myself into the final.
It's a healthy mindset to have. I'm sure there's a lot of people who will look back and be like, I wish I had a similar mindset. Um, what's next though? National championships, let's say they wrap up. I mean, I don't know if that result impacts anything. Are we staying for another year? Are we considering options outside of college? Like what do we think of the next steps are, if anything?
That's a great question, and it depends on how this outdoor championship and this USA championships goes. If I can tell you for sure, if I win, it'll be hard to convince me to come back, but it's always an option, and I'm not. I want to run professionally at some point in my career, and it's a matter of am I getting an offer that I think symbolizes what I think I'm worth, and if I do get one, then I'll leave, and if I don't, then I'll come back and I'll stay. So I have no idea what that answer is, and I'm guessing I'll kind of learn more as these next couple weeks unfold.
Cool. Isaac, you were awesome. I appreciate you answering all these different questions, walking through your whole career with me. Thank you so much for joining us, and dude, best of luck in the rest of the postseason.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me, and I'll do my best.
Thanks again.